Guys, have you heard of the PowerApps onboarding and tasks template that's available within PowerApps? So I wanted to touch on this today. Okay, so if you were to go into, sign into your PowerApps, and let's say we were about to create a new app. Okay, here we are on the Create tab. Do you see it off to the left, Create? And we'll just scroll down here and look at this. We have something over here called Onboarding Tasks. And you click on it. It's a whole onboarding template. I have it open here, so I'll move this one out of the way. And I want to sort of go over this template because, guys, the past few weeks, we've been creating our own PowerApps onboarding template. And we've been using Microsoft SQL Server as a backend, as a data source. Okay. And what I want to do is take a look at it because this has been out here for a while. And I know a lot of people either use it, looking to use it, interested in it, that type of thing. So I'd like to at least take a look at this and take a little bit of a detailed look. Okay. So this is the Microsoft PowerApps onboarding and tasks template. Okay. So that's what we're going to look at. And then we're also going to look at our SQL Server onboarding application and talk about how they're different and maybe get ideas from one to the other. Okay, what do you think about that, Kurt?
I'm excited.
You're excited? I'm excited. Hopefully everybody else is excited. Very good. We're going to keep our eye on the live chat. And if you're watching this after the fact, after we've gone live, welcome to this recording. But I see people already coming into the chat. Welcome, guys. I see a lot of good mornings and hellos. Hello to you. Okay. So what I'm going to do is, if you were to go and bring up this template, you would create. Now, I've already done that portion, and I got to this point. Okay, so here we go. Welcome to the team, Darren Neese. So it's acting as if I'm being onboarded. Okay, and if you were to do this, maybe I should actually show what this looks like right when you click on the create, because it shows you one more thing. So I'll go ahead and click on that. Let's see, Matthew, Patty, Data is King, Ellie, Nick. Welcome to the chat. So keep an eye on the private and the public chat while we're waiting for this thing to come up. And I'm a little excited. I've got a little bit of a pre-recorded message from this guy named Kurt, and he was my mentor from over, I don't know, we're probably looking at 25 years now, maybe 24, 25 years when I met you, Kurt, at community.
Who's counting years?
I'm feeling old. I think back then I was in my, somewhere in my 20s. I don't know. I forget.
We were all younger then. Everybody was younger back then.
So, guys, I've got a 4-minute clip from this guy named Kurt. I'm going to play later, so I'm not going to tell you where it's at. It's a special surprise, and it's sort of a really cool message I want to share with you guys. So just, stay tuned, watch the whole video, and somewhere in here in this live stream, you might see it. Kurt, you told me that you've got some responsibilities coming up later in the live stream, so you might have to duck out. Maybe, I don't know. You never know when I might play this video. So I just wanted to mention that as an exciting little surprise.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's ever seen this message ever.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I love the video, by the way. So we are presented with this thing on the screen, this prompt. And so look at this. These are all of the connectors that it's going to be using in this application. So we have Outlook tasks. We have Outlook. So it's going to connect to our Outlook and users. So I've never worked with the tasks connector, so this will be interesting. So within whatever you're calling it these days, either Office 365 or M365. So we have, well, I guess it ties into your Outlook tasks. But there's also, if you looked into it, there's it's called lists. Yeah, it's called lists. So if I were to go in here, look at this. You click on the waffle when you're signed in to O365 or M365, and you look at this. Here's lists. Isn't that interesting? So it's not tying into that, but there's all kinds of cool stuff. Like you could tie in a planner with PowerApps. There's a connector for that. There's all kinds of really cool stuff. And there's just so much to talk about. I just don't have time to look at it all. And I do see that Amber just joined us. Welcome, Amber. I know you've taken some time off. You had some things happen in your life. You needed to step away, but now you're back. So glad to see you in the live stream, Amber. And Amber, if you do show your video, you're in here as a panelist. If you show your video, I'll bring you on. If you hide your video, I'll take you off, just as a way to communicate if you want to be on or not. Okay. So anyhow, and I'd welcome any of the Accelerator students to join. And guys, if you want to come on as a panelist, interact with me and Kurt live, you might be interested in our Accelerator program. You might be a perfect fit for the Accelerator program. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, I have a link at the very top of this screen that says tinyurl.com/PowerApps Accelerator, and you'll learn all about it. You have a chance to book a call with us where you actually talk personally with me and Kurt. And we'll talk. Also, I assign student success, managers or coordinators. One will be assigned to you to touch base with you regularly, and then you'll be touching base with me and Kurt. We have 3 group calls every week. So it's an exciting. If you want to learn more about it, this isn't a commercial by any means, but the link is at the top of the screen if you're interested. So going back to what we have here in the middle of the screen, okay, I'm going to click allow. So whenever you start to use a PowerApps application, it's going to ask the users or even the PowerApps creators, hey, are you sure you want to use these 3 connectors? Because PowerApps is going to use your credentials to interact with these different components, and it just wants your permission. Okay, so I'm going to click allow. Who says PowerApps is dangerous? I think IT departments are a little skeptical of the Power platforms. Like, oh, I don't want to give too much power to those power users. I don't want any shadow IT in my organization doing stuff that only IT should be able to do. Well, guess what? Microsoft has created all these tools so that IT isn't overburdened. So take it as a gift from Microsoft. They're trying to empower users outside the IT. It doesn't give them any extra permissions that they normally would have. And it's probably better that they create a PowerApps application than an Excel spreadsheet or a Microsoft Access database empire, right?
Incidental empire.
What was that, Kurt?
An incidental empire at that. You guys know? Do you know what an incidental empire? Have I ever told you what an incidental empire is?
Kurt, I'm gonna write a little booklet, and I'm gonna sell it if you don't beat me to it. I'm gonna call it all the things that my mentor taught me, and I'll have a chapter for each one of these things. An incidental empire is something I've heard you talk about. I remember you saying that years ago, but I don't remember what that was. So please share with me and the rest of the world here.
Yeah. So an incidental empire is one of these people that get into your organization, they get a job, and they do something, they build something, or do something to make them so important that they build this empire and they become too important to fire, and then they don't do anything, and you can't get rid of them because they got this thing over here that they've done, and you're afraid to get rid of them, or you know what I mean? So it's an incidental empire. They created this incident. They found an incident where they could build this empire, and now they're too big to do anything. Now they're the emperor, So you build these people go in there and they build these applications, and then they become too important to fire.
I think there's a little bit of genius in that.
Absolutely.
I personally, I wouldn't feel very ethical doing that. But just having the intention, I guess it depends on your intention behind it. I'm going to create so much of a need, a dependency on this organization, on me, that they can never fire. Well, I never want them to, like, let's say whether I had that or not, I wouldn't want them to we want to get rid of them, but we can't, you know what I mean? I would never want to be in that spot. As you see, it happens. What's that?
That's a good worker. That's the definition of a good worker. They're built. They got so much value that the organization never wants to get rid of them. But an empire, an emperor, is somebody who does something and they build this thing that's too big, and then they just don't want to do anything else, and that's just too bad. And you guys just can't do nothing about it. It's like
they're tenured at that point.
Yeah, right. Exactly. They become leeches,
Oh, that's
So
so sad.
incidental empire building. It's a great thing. Yeah.
I have come across, Kurt, this is a great little snippet, this incidental empire, because I think this is a lot of the people that view my channel, my videos, they're in IT. Okay. And if you're not in IT, you're out of IT, right? So maybe this applies to everybody. Okay. So yeah, you want to be valuable to your organization, but I have had that working in IT, and the IT department will like, Darren, this guy out here has got access databases that this and several other departments use. And every once in a while, you'll hear this rumor, oh, Microsoft is getting rid of Access. Now, I've never seen any evidence or anything official from Microsoft on that. A few years ago, Microsoft announced, hey, we're not making Microsoft Access a part of the, well, they were calling it Office 365. Now it's M365, right? It's not a part of their cloud application. So you can use a web-based version of Excel and Word and all this stuff, right? But they're not create a web-based version of Access, because that would just be that would be dangerous. I mean, you could do almost anything in Access, really. You create your database, create your screens that users use, you create reports, create queries. There's all kinds of things, macros. it's like, you talk about an incidental empire. That is the way to do it with the Access database. You can do all kinds of stuff, right? Sure. And man, if you want to give somebody IT, give them shivers down their spine, I've got this Access database I've been working a few months on. And they're like, oh.
Yeah. It's a little, well, to even one up that, because that's true, but to one up that, think about the COBOL. Think about the COBOL programs that are out there. There's an old adage that says that the person who had to go into a deep freeze to wait for an operation for a cure for a disease they had, he was in a deep freeze. They woke him up. They said, "Oh, so you guys got the cure?" And they said, "No, we just heard you're a COBOL programmer. We need some help on a COBOL program." Talk about incidental empires, right?
That is hilarious. I'm going to add that to my joke database that I'm going to build in PowerApps one day. I like my brother. He is older than I am. I'll just leave it at that. He was a COBOL programmer. Now I think he does some PHP and some other things, but I'll have to forward that joke on to him. All right, so let's get back to the onboarding stuff here. So I brought it up on my screen. What I wanted to show you from this particular point is make your own version of the app by connecting to data sources such as OneDrive. So it's going to create an Excel spreadsheet that's going to sit in your OneDrive. That's what the data source. So let's create all the reasons why you would not want to use this template. Number one, it uses Excel or a spreadsheet as a database. Now it's very portable, it's very easy to use, but there's a lot of downsides to using Excel. It's probably one of the worst, if not the worst, data source to pick. I don't want to make this video all about why you won't want to use Excel as a data source, because I have a lot of other material that will go into that, And I just saw a comment by Amber says, OMG, Excel is very frustrating. Absolutely. And a lot of these templates, yeah. A lot of these
you can almost sense that he was wanting not to cuss in that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very frustrating.
Yeah. Yeah. So forgot what I was gonna say. Okay, so yeah, I think all of these templates use an Excel spreadsheet as a data source, and that's sort of the downfall. So I have a whole video, is my very first live stream, where I go through the ticketing system. I think I call it the service stat template. Okay, so if you go back, look at those listing and templates, you'll find that one. And that was one of the things I went to. And all these little apps they have out here, there are some bugs because they're old and some things don't work. I'm just going to show you what happens when I click on make my own app here. Okay, so it's going to want to connect to my OneDrive for Business. I'm going to click done. Okay, and now it's going to close it and reopen it. Okay, wouldn't it be cool, Kurt, if we could create our own templates like this that we could deploy with a data source? Hopefully not using Excel. I would at least like to use SharePoint. I would love, but but I think only Microsoft can do that. Make a template appear there on that screen, right?
Yeah, there can only be one emperor.
Yeah, an incidental empire, right? Okay, so we got this Excel spreadsheet here, and this is what it creates. So if you want to know where, and it's not very clear where they do this at. Okay, so I'm going to change how we look here, and I'm going to take out those links at the top, and then I'm going to maximize it so you guys can see this. Okay, so within Excel, what you're going to have here are these little tabs at the bottom of an Excel spreadsheet. Now, you can't see it right now, but if I move this, you see the very first one is administrators. Then we have tasks, okay? A bunch of test tasks, resources, team. So each of these tabs are sort of like a database table, if you will, okay? You have team link, all these things. So these are all the data sources that are set up within this PowerApps application. Okay, so if you were wanting to migrate this over to SharePoint, you would want to create all these SharePoint lists with all these column names in order to make all this work. Okay, now you could try to create a SharePoint list using the spreadsheet as a structure, and it's not as easy as you might think. It might actually these columns as column 1, column 2, and you don't want that type of stuff, right? Oh, this is a good question, Kurt. I'm going to have you answer this one, Kurt. How do you make relationships in Excel between tables?
Between tables. Well, I mean, you just got to create the spreadsheet's got to be a table format. You format that into a table format. I think it's pretty easy.
That's true. That's a really good point, Kurt.
And then you just have an ID that you would share. Yeah.
Absolutely. And what I found so funny is there's not really a way, unless there's somebody that knows, please share it with me. I really don't build apps in Excel. How would you create a real like SharePoint has a lookup column, and that's how I guess you could create. Now, it's not how you'd want to do it if you're using PowerApps. And I've got a lot of videos out there. If you search for Darren Neese and one-to-many relationships, I sort of go into that. I guess you could do the same thing within Excel, have like little IDs. And even you'll see like the little PowerApps ID column. PowerApps will try to create its own little ID. I guess you could use that as a foreign key in another table. I guess you could sure. do that. Now within Dataverse, you have a lookup column, and that's how you would create a relationship. So that is sort of interesting.
Yeah, I guess I don't even know how to express this, but I guess when I hear the word relationship within data tables, I guess I'm thinking always of the manual ID to ID thing. But in terms of relationships with these models like Excel, Dataverse, some of these others, they build relationship connections using those IDs underneath the surface so that you don't see it, right? And that's right. When they talk about relational DBMSs, I think they talk in terms like that, but I can't think in terms like that. I have to think ID to ID, Yeah. I have to think unique ID to foreign key, Right. Or I guess the real word would be primary key to foreign key, right?
That's right. Yeah. So somebody like me, Kurt, has a lot of database experience. We would cringe about trying to use Excel as a data source. And all the things that we would expect to be in a relational database management system, right? Yeah. I do want to keep up with our comments here. So Jason asks, is it possible to change the column names when importing into Excel? I tried to, I have had a few experiences importing from Excel into SharePoint, and I think that's maybe what Jason is referring to, into SharePoint. What my experience is, it creates the column 1, 2, 3, and can you rename them? You could go into the SharePoint list and rename that column 1 as something else. I've had a bad experience while trying to rename columns in SharePoint. Once you create, SharePoint has the original name in there somewhere, and when PowerApps talks to SharePoint, it says, "Oh, here's field 1," and maybe you called that field 1 first name. It doesn't translate over for some reason, you know. So I'm going to look at some of these other comments here. Yeah, so if you look at, and perhaps this is when we're talking about incidental empires, Elbaz says, the other side of that, once you learn how to do something, other people's problems become your problem. That's true. So in an organization, you'd be known as the expert in some area, and they'll come to you with that. So make sure if you pick up some technology, make sure that you like to work in it. If you pick up something you absolutely hate, like crystal reports, I'm like, no, I don't know crystal reports. I don't want anybody to know that. You're about to say something, Kurt?
Yeah, the other side of that, though, is that if you can stack all those things that people need you to do, you're building quite an incidental empire. And if you can learn how to manipulate that, you can just about name your price, So that's pretty good stuff.
Yeah, ask for a raise or something. Yeah.
Or you could just say, that might be added responsibility, an increase in responsibilities. Can we talk about an increase in salary?
Moving right along here, we're going to go on to the next comment. What else do we got? Nick says, you can add access to data tables and then PowerApps. Absolutely. So then, all right. I just use templates to get ideas of what's done and learn how they populate some of the codes. It will take a lot of work to make it useful.
And that's what I do. That's exactly what I do too. Those templates are really useful to kind of waken up your imagination. You look at it like, well, what are they talking about with that? Some people don't even know what an onboarding app is. Well, we can go see this template and you can kind of look at what they're doing,
Absolutely.
That's the way I build incidental empires. I never say no. So I might have never done anything in my life. Have you ever cooked a hamburger? Oh, yeah. I never cooked a hamburger in my life. And I'll go out there and learn how to do hamburgers right away. So that's kind of how you would do this too. Could you build this an onboarding app? Sure. Have you ever seen one? Nope. But I'm going to go find out right now. It's a great way to do it.
And maybe that, Kurt, I'm the same way. And I think maybe you taught me that way, because I'm the same way. I work in a field of information technology where it's like, whoa, we have to do this properly, and let's put in restrictions and boundaries, and I think there's a place for that. And I think a portion of that is there's a degree of that's necessary, Sure. And as the organization grows, I think it's a necessary evil that has to grow with it, because otherwise things get out of hand. Sure. But I do not like saying no at all. Hey, is this possible? Well, yep. The answer is always yes, because right when you say no, there's somebody else out there doing what you just said is impossible because they thought outside the box. Yep. And I don't want to, and it would make me look like a fool, if you're sitting there as the developer or the expert in something. Hey, is this possible? So one day I was I worked directly for an executive of HR, and she hired me because of my various IT skill set, and she wasn't getting out of the IT department what she wanted. So she hired me that almost had all the skills that the team of IT of maybe 5 or 6 people, I had a lot of their skills. I had some networking skills. I had some software development skills. I had a lot of desktop skills and all that stuff. So she hired me in there, and I implemented SharePoint in the organization. She goes, you see that little heading there? And within SharePoint, you go in there and you type something in. She goes, I want to make that bold. And I'm like, that's not possible. There's no way. SharePoint doesn't say make this bold. It's just text. She goes, oh, okay. Well, thanks for letting me know. And then I go back. I'm like, I wonder if I could throw a B tag, like an HTML B tag or a strong tag or something in there. And it worked. 5 minutes later, I walked in. Hey, Melissa, I figured it out, blah, blah, blah. And she was actually upset with me. She said, Darren, next time I ask if something's if it's possible or not, go do your research before you come back and tell me it's, and executives are like that. Hey, don't be wasting my time, So you got to think outside the box a lot of of times. Otherwise, you sort of, because there could be an intern working there like, oh, well, I know some HTML. Let me just type, and boom. So here you are as the expert, and this intern that knew a little bit of HTML just surpassed you in everybody else's mind.
Yep. And I didn't come up with this, so but I did probably make it profound when I said it. I don't know, but there's an old adage that says that people that say they can't do something are getting in the way of people that are getting it done or wanting to get it done, or the people that can.
Yeah.
And that's the way it really is. So, and you're right. You never want to get surpassed. I just look at stuff as a challenge, and I especially with this kind of thing. And I've never failed yet. So I mean, let's just keep going till you fail.
Right.
That's the beauty. I've said this a million times. That's the beauty of this industry. It's also the curse of this industry. The curse of this industry is there's always something new that you've got to learn. Always. You're always learning. You're always at the edge of feeling overwhelmed. But that's the beauty of it too, because it's a challenge and you're never going to get bored. You're never going to get stale. You just keep going, So that's what's so great about this industry.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So let's keep up with the other comments here. Let's see. Vegas King says merge cells in Excel frustrate me. And then we've got some code out here. If Merles equals true, walk away. I love that. Yeah. I've been playing around with the MS App file for creating custom PowerApps template. Okay, very good. Very good. The only things that are great in Excel are VBA and Power Query. Okay. Is a data table tab to do relationships in Excel. Wow. Okay. All right, Ellie. I don't see you on as an analyst. I would bring you on, but yeah, I am familiar. There is a tab here at the top. Let's say table design. Well, let me make this bigger. Okay. So if you want your data to be seen by PowerApps, you absolutely need to select all the data and say, make this into a table. Now it's already been made a table. Okay. And if I click in here, I have to click on table design again. You see this little table name up here at the top? If you don't rename this will be like table 1, which you don't want. You need to make sure you have that in there. So Ellie's saying somewhere in here, and maybe it's right in front of my face and I just don't see it. Okay. So just know that Ellie is in the know, and there is somehow, maybe I have to enable the content here. Maybe if you just do a Google search, you'll probably find an article on that. If you're really interested, Kurt and I are going to try to steer you away from Excel, though. I would not
there's
create.
A lot of reasons why.
What's that?
I said there's a lot of good reasons why to be steered away from Excel. I think
there is
in the terms of database.
One of the main reasons I found is the file gets locked up and then nobody else can get in there. So somebody's using the app, somebody else tries to use the app. Oh, somebody has that file open. It's the most unworkable data source. And there's performance issues and all kinds of stuff. So
typing.
TN, hopefully I pronounced that right. I would not create SharePoint list from Excel. My experience, the internal name in SharePoint list becomes field 1. Yeah, that's what I was touching on before. So Ellie says, data tab. Okay, so if we click on data here, and okay, we got a lot more things. Okay, so if I click on relationships, look at that. Well, that's very interesting. Thank you for sharing that, Ellie. So you can go in here and pick the table, pick the column. Now the $1 million question is, does PowerApps see these relationships? Can it do anything with those relationships? So Ellie, if you know that might be useful to somebody. Okay. And Ellie says, Jason, I'm working on one that as well. I don't know. I'm working to take in template each week to upload PowerApps. I have to rename the fields. Okay. Okay, so let's move on from all the importing Excel. But if you guys want to, there's a discussion in the chat. And if you're watching this later on, just look at the live chat and people are discussing this, okay? but I'll see if there's anything else in here. So here's a question from someone. I'm not sure if let's see. Is it possible to create Kurt, you say that word,
compensatory.
We're gonna compensate someone for their leave. I'm just gonna phrase it like that. Leave management system where employees work during the weekends and records their leaves in the PowerApps based system, then they claim within 3 months' time. Absolutely, it's possible. We won't be covering that today, but maybe that's something we could add on to our onboarding system that we're building with SQL Server. Okay, so Rick likes your advice. That's great advice. Keep going until you fail. And you know what? You're never beaten until you ultimately give up. Right?
I agree. Just don't cash it in. Just don't. When it falls, when the stock market falls, just don't cash it in. You'll be okay.
Right. Yeah. All right. So that is the data source for this. So this is the screen that comes up initially after we connect to that data source. We made it our own. Okay. And it says customize the app to meet specific needs of your team. Okay, I'm going to run this so I can see it a little bit bigger here. Add onboarding tasks, resources, team links, and company information. Content will be saved to an Excel file. All right. It can be modified by admin users at any time. Adding an admin user will allow you to build database directly from the app. The admin options will only be exposed to users added. Okay. So in this case, I probably want to add myself. Let's see if this actually works here. I'll add the Jedi Darren here, and I'll add them as an admin user. Now, what happens if the user goes into the Excel file and adds themselves as an admin? Can you lock down an Excel file like that? And if you lock it down, can people still use the app? Those would be really important questions, right? Now it's telling, please provide a valid contact. I just did. And down here it says Darren has been added. I'm going to exit out of run mode and see if there's any errors. Okay. So it's getting this, please add a valid contact. If I go down to visible, okay. So it's doing some checking here. And for some reason it's saying admin user. Okay. So that's interesting. So I'm not familiar. I'm exploring this app template with you guys right now in real time. So I'm trying to wrap my mind around everything.
This is what makes Darren so great. This is what I think separates him from everybody else. He just goes in there. This is exactly what we're talking about. Can we do it? Well, sure. Let's go do it. He doesn't prepare. No, we're just going to go in here and do it. I used to play back in the day. I used to be in a rock band. I used to have hair.
Really?
And yeah, true story. And I remember we were all nervous and worrying about rehearsing, and we're not ready to go play out yet and getting these places and have people hear us and stuff. And the guy, I finally jumped out there and said, look, guys, what's going to happen is going to happen. Just go out there and live the life and just enjoy it for now. Just go do it, And you know what? We always came out this fine. And that's kind of the way you do it. You go out there and say, we're just going to do this thing, man. And you fall into some stuff sometimes, but you end up, we all learn from it. That's what programming is, though, guys. When you go out there and you start this new project, there's always something in it you don't know about. And you go out there and you just jump in it and you get in it and you're in the moment. That's exactly what we're doing right now. We're out here in the moment of this thing. I love this.
Yeah, this is good stuff.
Yeah.
And even this live stream, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to cover in regarding onboarding apps. And I'm like, I was doing a little bit of web searching, doing some investigation. And I'm like, oh my God, there's an onboarding template out here. I bet we could get some great ideas for our own onboarding application. And that's sort of where this sort of, went.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
If you check out my first live stream, my live streams are a big wild card for me because you never know if things are going to work. I don't know if my camera's going to work. Sometimes it doesn't work. I mean, there's all kinds of things that can go wrong.
That's the way life is, man.
It is. If you look at my first live stream, my whole voice was echoing for the first 15 minutes of the whole thing. And it's like, oh, I probably need to delete that one. It's one of my most popular videos.
Darren,
I can't change
Darren,
it.
You are art imitating life.
Somebody type that, add it to the book of Kurt-isms.
Darren is art imitating life.
That's funny. I do see Thean says, I like to take a look at the app on start and on visible to see if there's any code. Yeah, absolutely. And Ellie says, yes. Okay, so that's a good question. If we're going to explore this app properly, Kurt, let's click on the app. Okay, and we'll go to the on start. And
that's where it all starts, right?
What's that?
That's where it all starts. So
it is. Now, for me, it looks a little ugly. I always like it format text. Maybe we won't do that today. But you know what? You could probably see everything a little better if I zoomed in here a little more. Okay. Give you one more. Maybe that's too much. Okay, let's go here and make this a little taller here. And let's start at the top. So this is what's going on. Now, what I don't like about this is my group. Okay, so now we've got, if you use this keyword, you're either creating or assigning a value to a global variable. Okay, and they really should have prefixed this according to the Microsoft best practices and standards. And perhaps this application, a lot of these app templates might have been created before those standards came out. Okay, you know,
did Microsoft make this thing?
What's that?
Didn't Microsoft make this thing?
Well,
I
think maybe what happened, you had some MVPs in the community that said, hey, I've got this thing, and Microsoft maybe approached them, hey, can we add this as a template? Maybe they are. I've never seen any type of history of like how these things were created, but I think that's, if you look at some of Microsoft stuff out there, even in Microsoft Learn, sometimes they'll reach out to people that are known in the community to do different portions of that or to contribute in some way. And I think this might have been a contribution, but I would have expected something like if I'm going to hold a record here, the lookup will return a record if the lookup has two parameters. Okay. In this case, it is a record. So in this case, I would have said REC for record. Okay. And we have these other things. So a group, so we've got a mygroup.id. What is that? I don't know if it's a numeric. If I select this, it says text and it's blank. Well, global variables actually should be named GBL. That is the prefix that you should have for all your global variables. And then if it's a context variable, it should say LOC, short for local. So when I was saying REC for record, typically what I'll do is GBL, and then I'll say maybe a rec or something like that, and then go on like that. That will sort of tell you when you look at that global variable, it's actually a record. So that's something else you could do.
An alternative could be to do the GBL and then say group record, GBL group record, something that's making it obvious that that's a record, but
absolutely
the GBL should always be the pretext because I mean, there's a big difference between a global variable and other things. So
absolutely. Now I like the fact that they put my instead of just in group, because that could be a PowerApps reserved keyword, which you don't want to do. So just keep that in mind. Now, there's two things I want to point out here. Number one, if you wanted to rename this is something that they released probably several months now, or maybe almost a year, where we could do a search and replace project-wide. We used to not have that, and it was a big pain to do that, but they've provided that. Is there anything here that you might regard as really important here on this left pane that is not there? What do you think about that, Kurt?
Well, I'm not sure.
So out of all these things here, what would you say? Tree view, everybody uses that probably the most. What's the second thing that you use most over here on the sidebar?
Oh, The second thing would be, your I use the variables, the number 2.
Use variables. Okay, what's the next big thing that you click?
And then it might be the search, and then everything else. And then everything else, I really don't insert. I don't.
Now you're looking at this list like, okay, which one of these do I use the most?
Yeah.
You're to close your eyes.
Well, right. Okay.
What would it be? Because it's not here. Is the point?
Oh, okay. I don't know.
Data.
Well, I don't know. I'm failing.
Data sources.
Oh yeah, it's not there. Why isn't it there?
You know what? Because it's an old template.
You don't miss what you don't see. And you're right. I use data, that data can all the time. It's just, I just take it for granted. It's there, So you're right, Darren. You're right.
So what's up with that? That's a big and you could download this MSAP file and unpack it. It's a zip file, so you rename it as a zip. You can open it up, or you can use a Microsoft tool to open it up and unpack it. And there are some values in there, so you could say it's like an older format, okay? And there's like a bug; it's not showing you the data sources. And we know we have a data source we connected to the Excel spreadsheet, right? Now, something that you will notice is there is an add data thing here. Now, used to be a data item up here, and it would bring up a data pane. And they took that out. Microsoft was changing this stuff up. And what they don't realize, Microsoft, you have templates out here that people are trying to use, and you make changes to your PowerApps Studio that make these things obsolete, like this thing right here. You absolutely need to get to that data. But if I want to add data, thankfully I have this. But what happens if I add it? If I go here and I add SharePoint,
yeah, you're right.
Okay?
You're right, Darren.
Let me see what happens here. I'm gonna bring up PowerApps ticketing system, and I'm gonna add departments, and I'm gonna connect. What happens? Will I get a data tab over here? This is a huge pain in the butt. I wish that Microsoft would bring back the data sources. There used to be a big thing up here, data source, or at least force it to always be here. And it's going to take, of course, it's going to take a while to bring this up.
So there's a couple things I really want to say about that. The second most important thing in anything in life is consistency. That's the number 2 thing in everything. That's the one thing that I wanted to bring up. The other thing I wanted to bring up was Amber has a comment in the private chat, and I just kind of want to bring this into it and have you talk about it if you want to.
Please do.
He said, look up is reading a record, and we are looking up the field name in a column. Outlook tasks. Correct me if I am wrong, please. So perhaps maybe we need to talk about the number, the 2 parameter lookup versus the 3 parameter lookup. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. Before we go to that, I want to finish up the data sources before we go. But I'm going to keep that comment here on the screen so I don't forget about it. And actually, I'm probably going to have to hide it in order to see everything here. Okay. So now I added SharePoint. So this is a little trick I just realized here. Okay. I don't work with these old templates. I don't base apps on these things. Okay. For obvious reasons. I added a data source in SharePoint, and I'm like, okay, it added it. Where is it? And it gave me this thing right here. Well, these are all the data sources that are in here now. So now I can see them. Isn't that interesting? So if you want to see the data sources right now, as Microsoft has this interface, they might change it tomorrow or next month or in a year, I can click add data, add a data source. You can remove it if you want, but look at this. Here's all the data sources. So it's like a little trick to get at your data sources. Isn't that interesting? And so here's departments. So now what I can do, what's great about having these data sources here? There's various reasons. Well, what's the name of my database table? Well, I always click on data and look at my data sources. Well, here's departments. Okay. I can edit this data, and it doesn't edit the data, it just brings me to it so I can look at it and maybe edit it. Okay. So that's useful. Can I do this for these others? No. You got to go to that Excel spreadsheet and open it up. I'm going to go and remove this, but I accomplished what I was looking for, which is I wanted to see all different data sources. So that's a way to get at that. Now, if you were to exit out You still don't have data here. How are you going to get back there? Well, I guess I'll click on add data again. And you got to add a data source in order to see. So it's a little trick. So I think that's huge. If you're using one of these old templates, that's a really valuable tip or trick. All right. So the one other thing I was going to say about the sidebar here before we go back to Amber's question is if you wanted to rename this, it's the search, and you would search for all the occurrences, but make sure you also click on replace. So if you want to replace it all at once, you can do that. Okay. Now that I've said that, I'm going to get out of that and make sure I've got the tree view selected. I'm going to go back here, and I am going to bring Amber's question back up. Lookup is reading a record, and we are looking up the field name, i.e. column, Outlook tasks. Correct me if I'm wrong, please.
I was thinking he was referring to the maybe not knowing about the 2-parameter lookup versus the 3-parameter lookup.
Oh, okay.
That's why I wanted to know if you wanted to talk about real quick.
Yeah. So, you know what? I'm gonna do something here. Hopefully, it doesn't freak anybody out. I'm going to click on format text. There we go. It's obvious now that we did that. There's only 2 parameters being passed in the lookup. So if there's 2 parameters, it's going to return a record value. If there's 3 parameters, it's going to return. The 3rd parameter would be, hey, what column do you want out of that? Okay, so it would return the type that. So if it's a string type of column, it's going to return a string. So that lookup function is really flexible, and it can return all kinds of different. Yeah, it actually is.
And I don't know how well documented that is, and I don't know how many people missed that. You know, I know when I was learning PowerApps, I didn't know about it. I'm like, oh, look at that. That's a big help. You know.
Yeah.
So
well, sometimes people will just do the lookup the record. They'll never provide that 3rd parameter, even if they just wanted one thing, and they'll say dot. And look at this down here. You can see all these, and perhaps I need to reposition ourselves here a little bit.
I believe that might be considered a bad coding practice, though, because you are adding a reference. You're actually going into a reference instead of looking at a value. So if you're taking up a lot of space with the computer, I mean the memory, and you're also on speed, versus when you do that 3rd field in there or 3rd parameter in there, just to get a field value out of the table, that's just a value. You're just grabbing a value there. And not to mention, think about the record that you're bringing back just to get that one little thing. You could have 150 fields in there. They could be pictures and whatever. And that pocket of memory gets big real fast. And so you're taking up resources, but all you just needed was a little text field, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly it, Kurt. So if you ever learn any type of good SQL, and go through some good SQL training, you'll learn that you do a select star from database table. And that star means give me all the columns. You never want to do that. You never want to see your manager see that. You never want to put that code out because people say, you're getting all the columns. Do you need all the columns? You probably only need 2 or 3. Well, if you only need one value, you don't need the whole record, then you should provide a 3rd parameter here. Okay. And look, now you can see all the columns down here. So when you go do that lookup, it's like when you go to the data source, it says, just give me that one field. Okay. But if you give it 2 parameters, you get all the fields, and then you're going to say, oh, now that I have the whole record, just give me the ID. So yeah, that would be a little inefficient, right?
Yeah. You just did like 4 or 5 calls down to the assembler just to get that one little thing. It's going to come back with the one thing. It's going to grab this huge, humongous million bytes of pocket of memory to get you a 5-byte text field,
Yeah, absolutely. Now, just to sort of touch base on this Outlook tasks is an object, and get task groups. Now, what is this? This isn't a database table. Now, the type is table, but it's not coming from a database. It's not coming from a lot of people would laugh if you call SharePoint list a database table, but for our uses, it is, right? But let's look into this. We didn't find any data. Okay, well, sometimes it does tell you that don't find any data. So what this is, we're using a connector that goes into my Outlook account and gets, so it's obvious I don't use Outlook tasks, right? But it's returning a table, so you can use it almost like a database table. Okay, so I just wanted to see that. Okay, now let's keep up to date here on all these comments. So tons of comments coming in, guys. This is great. Thank you so much. It really shows the engagement and sort of shows the algorithm. Hey, this is good content because there's people on here. So if you think about saying comment, even if it's a hello or whatever, please do, because check this out.
If you're getting anything helpful out of this, a comment or even a like really helps the channel, and lets people like you know this is good content. Much appreciated.
Yeah, so those comments, it tells the YouTube algorithm this is good content. So I appreciate all these comments. Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to say, Darren, on top of that, and that's very important, but also for you guys that are out there doing the comments, if you want to be a student of the language, if you want to be a good student of anything, you ask lots of questions and become very active in the conversation so that you're engaged. Your mind is always engaged, so you're always learning. The worst thing you can do when you're trying to learn something is just be a fly on the wall and let information pass you by, because you want to make sure you're asking clarifying questions like Amber just did. You want to and sometimes that's a scary thing too, because you don't want to look like the dummy. Maybe I'm the only one that doesn't know this. I don't want to ask and look stupid. You know what? It doesn't matter. We're here to learn something, man. Nobody's born with this knowledge, and we've got to figure this thing out. So I really appreciate the comments. It just tells me the kind of people that are watching us today. That you guys are true students of programming, and you're really trying to learn this stuff. So good stuff.
Absolutely. This is okay. So Angel, look at this. Hi, Darren. Please can I request a dedicated video on many-to-many relationships?
Man.
I'm finding it very difficult with many-to-many in Dataverse. I can't see the intersect table.
Here we go.
Do you have anything to say about that?
Actually, I have a lot to say about it, but I'm not going to say it now. We got a couple videos for it. In fact, I just did one for SharePoint to deal with SharePoint, many-to-many using SharePoint.
Yeah, but we have them out there for Dataverse as well.
And we got one for the Dataverse. Yep.
Do a search for Darren Neese and many relationships. I want to see what comes up here. I'm hoping it's
we just did one.
Now, a lot of people do use SharePoint. Kurt, what would you say the percentage breakdown of people that use SharePoint to other data sources?
73.2%.
And there you guys have it.
I was actually told by somebody way smarter than me nowadays that 70% of his customers use SharePoint.
Yeah.
And he's told me that at least, I don't know, 150 times.
Sounds like a very smart guy, Kurt.
Very smart. Now, which one's the one I just did on this Dataverse one? You remember? Because I just did.
Well, yeah, we did it recently. Okay, so I'm going to go in here and I'm going to go look at, was it I think it was just a normal video, if I'm not mistaken.
It was. I think it's that second one.
It might be this Dataverse relationship where we really get into that. Yeah.
Yep, I remember that one.
Let me click on share.
You look pretty good in that video too, by the way. Look, you looked a lot younger. You looked a lot younger. I must be taking years off your life or something.
I think I was using my crappier video camera instead of my Nikon. Maybe the Nikon gets all my wrinkles or something. Okay, so because Angel had a few things in here that I thought were really good. Your videos have a great way of explaining these things. Maybe a simple video with two tables that are many-to-many and show how to relate them. Yeah, we do that in those videos.
Exactly what we do, Angel. It's exactly what we do.
So do a search. You see here, I've got Darren Neese, many relationships, and you'll see all these things that pop up. I have at least 4, maybe 5 on relationships. So check that out. And we cover different things, SharePoint, Dataverse. So if you have any questions, also make sure that you join our community, because in YouTube comments, it's really hard for me to interact with people and try to solve their problem. Because let's say you can't share a screenshot, I can't share a screenshot. So this community. I have a link at the very top of the screen right here, tinyurl.com/power platform community. That is a free community that provide, and it's becoming quite active. So you might want to check that, interact with us there between these live streams. And you might find that you love this type of content. You want to be a part of the Accelerator program. So I know I'm sure I have quite a few of my Accelerator students on, and they might tell you how valuable it has been to them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Definitely let us know what you guys are getting out of this thing, Accelerator students.
Absolutely. And
mostly it's active because people like to make fun of me a lot. So.
Well, there's so much material to use for that.
It just never gets old, does it? I mean.
So Tian says the best practice is to add comments. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you would almost expect a template that's put out there by Microsoft to be like the pinnacle, the perfect example of how you should build an app, right? So I'd imagine, creating good variable names, putting comments, documenting your code through comments. Okay, that would be a great thing. Okay. All right. So when I'm learning something and see data is a table, I throw that into a gallery and see what data is there. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I do that a lot of times. Sometimes I use the data table. That's about the only reason I use a data table, because it brings over all the columns. All right. So, Rodrigo says, excelente. I don't know if that's a callback to using Excel, but excelente. Brazil watching. Very cool. Nice to have you, Rodrigo. Okay, so I am Titanium. I like that. Hi, guys. I'm relatively new to PowerApps, and I wonder what variables are most useful for. And I would love Kurt's take on this, but he will be right back, according to his photo there now. Variables are used to hold values that probably will change. Okay, so let's say we're writing a game. You guys remember the old game Pac-Man? Almost any game, you might have lives, like, or you might have how many points that you have in a game. All right, and that will change. Well, you need somewhere to put that, somewhere in memory. So you create a variable, and some of these keywords are from algebra. Okay, so you've got, solve for x. X could be a variable. Okay. So whenever you use the set keyword, and by the way, if you do a search in YouTube for Darren, you say Darren Neese variables, you might find some good content there that actually talks more about this. Okay, so if I click on videos and I search for, okay, there's context variables. There is one here for actually this one right here. I'm going to grab the link to that. Okay, Titanium, I'm going to recommend that you check out this particular video. And it is a 6-minute video, and I think it covers it pretty well. And then if you have any comments, please join our community, and we can talk more about it there, have more of a better discussion. Yeah. Thanks so much for the question. Yeah, so Ellie says that is a hard topic for everyone. Yeah, let's see here. Ellie says, what does Ellie say about this? A great community, and the Accelerator program is amazing. Well, thank you so much, Ellie. I'm so glad you're part of our Accelerator program. And so, by the way, guys, I have 2 communities. I have a free community. Now, the Accelerator is a paid system, but I commit to you, me, Kurt, and my team. I have a whole team of people. We commit to you for a full year and make sure that you get to whatever goal you have with PowerApps. If that's to become a freelancer, a goal of making, I don't know, $10,000 a month, well, we're going to help you reach that goal within that year. Okay. And if you don't reach that goal, my guarantee is I continue to work with you until you do reach it. Okay. So, very good. So I'm most looking forward to the new feature next year where PowerFX window can be its own separate tab. Okay. Very cool. Very cool. So Kurt is away now. I'm going to hide his picture there until he comes back. Okay. And okay, so yeah, let's take a little bit more of a look, and I want to make sure that we get through this overview of this template. Okay, so there's a lot of stuff in here. We could study this more in depth, and then each screen that we have over here on the left side of the screen, each of these screens will have. Go over to advanced. We'll have an on visible. Even more code. So this is code that runs whenever that screen is gone to by a user. Okay. Yeah. So for overlays like this, so I'm using a tool called Restream. So if you go to restream.io, so that's what I use, and they have their own overlay type of stuff. So I will create a PNG with a transparent background inside of a tool called Canva, and then I export that and then bring it into Restream, and that's how I do my overlays. Yeah. So speaking of overlays, let me go over here and show you guys something. Okay, and that is my different my different overlay. So there's a different link up there. That is to the PowerApps Accelerator. If you want to know more about that, there's the link for that. Okay. And Titanium says, thank you very much. I'll definitely join the community. Definitely got to change the YouTube profile to use my real name. So Kurt, how you doing on time? I know that you got some other responsibilities.
I'm okay so far.
Okay. All right. Very good. So what I want to do, I want to make sure that we sort of finish this overview of this template, because people that search for this, they come across this video, I want to make sure that they get the value of going through this. Now, if you go to my YouTube channel, there is a playlist for my onboarding application. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to share with you guys the link to the playlist. And this video will be a part of that playlist. But if you want to know how to build your own onboarding application from scratch using a big boy database, SQL Server, we are doing this. But I wanted to take this opportunity to sort of go through and get some additional ideas and maybe what we want in our onboarding application. Okay. So here's that screen. We have a welcome screen. So let's say somebody's being onboarded. You send them to this app, send them a link, and they'll come to this app. Hey, welcome to the team. What happens when they click on this button? It goes to my profile screen. Okay. Is that the next screen? It is my profile screen. Now look at this. Well, first of all, we have errors. Isn't that interesting? We already have errors. Now, Kurt, this is an interesting screen here. Right. So if we look over at my other, well, I guess I don't have it up. I should bring that up. Bring up my onboarding application that we've been building together. And also I'm going to get rid of this overlay because sometimes it does get in the way. Okay, so I'll get rid of that and we'll see more of the screen here. Okay. So somebody is using the onboarding application and they're going to, okay, so here's my profile. Company profile photo, about me, all that type of stuff. And we also have a to-do list and we have a little progress bar. This is a really cool little dashboard, isn't it? I like that. So while this is working.
I mean, if it was a really cool dashboard, it would have some charts in there showing percent complete on tasks and stuff like that.
Absolutely. I think that's what they were trying to do. Now, what is this? This is they're using a canvas here. Oh, you know what? Because it scrolls, okay, or it has the capability of scrolling. Do you see that? So we got they have canvases all in here. That's interesting. Probably because back then they didn't have containers. That's really interesting of how they did.
You're back in the old days, you know, when PowerApps was just a wee thing, you know.
Yeah. So this is really interesting stuff. And I wanted to click on this little, this thing here, but it won't allow me. So if I click on, okay. Photo profile. So they're using groups because they didn't have containers back then. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to click around until I can get into that little progress bar.
Is that, hold on, Darren, is that what that card's about? Is that about making it a group? See that card up there? It says card.
I do see the card.
Right? Is that like a form thing?
Is it sort of like a what thing?
Is that like a form thing?
Well, that's how you can get at these cards. Okay. But look at this. It is a child element of the canvas. Okay. So a canvas is how you create a scrollable screen. And normally you can't pull down data cards and canvases from the insert menu, right? You know that. I know that. And you guys may have already known that as well, because maybe you've tried to do that. If you want to have a scrollable screen like this, what you have to do is you say new screen, go over to template and you say scrollable. You create a new screen. And if you look at this new screen down here, screen 1, and down here at the bottom, it creates a little canvas. And then what you can do at this point, they're made up of data cards. So you don't have to create a form to do that. Now what's interesting, let's create something here like an image. Add that here. But let's make this image really big. Okay. Now they've got little ads. Now if I run this screen here, okay, there's just an image. That's it. There's no scrollable. What I click down here, nothing happens, right?
Right.
What happens if I add a section? It adds a new data card, Kurt. And what happens if I select this image, and I copy, and I go down to this data card down here, and I paste that in there. Look at this. Now I have a scrollable screen. This looks more like a web page instead of a screen now. Isn't that interesting?
I like it. I like it.
And then if you want to use that, you can copy like this whole thing and paste it into a different screen. So there's a little bit of a tip and a trick there.
So I can just continually, endlessly put data cards down there and just keep scrolling if I wanted to.
Yes.
So now my next question is, could we make that data driven somehow and have data cards added depending on, and then we've actually got a screen that could imitate a gallery almost.
You're such a programmer, Kurt. That's programmers think.
It's kind of cool. But anyway, okay, so we don't want to get sidetracked because this is what me and Darren do. We'll find this thing. It's like, oh, let's go look. We're like dogs chasing squirrels. Squirrel. Then he loses track of what he was doing. I don't want to take you off your mark, what you were trying to do there, Darren. But this is a good thing. I would like to try to play with this one day.
I mean, this could be a separate video. To be honest, we could sort of explore this.
Maybe a Saturday morning live stream. We can just play around with this thing. There
aren't enough Saturdays in a year. Do everything
There's
that we
never
want
enough
to
Saturdays, period. Unless you're a programmer, and then every day Saturday. Just putting it out there. Just put it out there.
You're put out there. Every day is a Saturday. Now, what exactly do you mean?
I love programming. You guys may not know that, but I also love to teach programming. I love everything about teaching people how to program. I really enjoy those moments when people get it. You can see the light bulb go off in their head. I like presenting information in a way, and again, it's a challenge, right? I like to present information in a way that doesn't give the answer to people, but gives them enough of the answer to where they can go and they can grapple at it and work at it and figure it out, and then that light bulb kicks off. To me, that's what teaching's about. And I like taking a person who's feeling overwhelmed about a subject and breaking it down and making it easy for them to understand. I say this often, but contrary to what other people believe when they think about programming or computer science, software development, any of those kinds of things, we're not born with this knowledge. So when people think that somebody's really smart at something, and they may be, it's not because they were born with that way. They worked at it and they had to learn how to do it. And I guess I don't think that I'm very smart in anything. And I feel like I know how to program pretty good. So I believe that if I can do it, then surely all of you guys can do it that are trying to do this. But the difference in in when a person can get it and when they can't, I believe is in the teaching. I believe it's how it's being taught, that somehow or another there's a disconnect and a person can't get it and they're not understanding. So the big challenge that I love about programming and teaching people how to program is how to meet somebody at their map of the world. Find out where they're at, meet them at their map of the world, and bring them into the fold so that they can understand it. I just love doing that. And I like taking it and breaking it down and seeing a person understand one step at a time until they got it. And then I also like teaching the principles. I like not just showing somebody how to draw something up on a screen, but the principles behind drawing something up on the screen, so that they can come up with their own philosophies and their own practices and their own way of their own style. I don't want to try to make a whole lot of people like myself. I want people to be themselves, and I want them to be able to use those principles to help them forge their skill set. I love talking to people and building relationships with people who are trying to program, and it turns out, and I like to watch them grow. Like I watched Darren through the years. I just love doing that. So I love to teach, and I like taking the mystery out of things. And I like taking, another thing is really, really cool about teaching people how to program. I'm showing people how to do something that may change their life, change their way they work, change their career. And it takes it from that this person probably couldn't have done it before, and they thought that it was overwhelming. They thought they couldn't do it. So I guess I said all that to say, I love empowering people. I don't like to be like big Kurt, little you. I like pulling people up so that we're all programming together in the same place, in the same ways, and enjoying what we're doing, so that every day is Saturday.
Every day's a Saturday. What a great segue, Kurt.
Every day, I didn't even mean it to be like that, but that's funny. You did that.
That was great.
Yeah.
So there was the gold. Yeah, I love that video. Good stuff. All right, so I went back to this screen, so trying to get back to how they were doing things here, but I also wanted to look at the comments here. Apologies for interrupting, but what are containers best for?
Oh my goodness.
You have an answer for that, Kurt?
Everything.
And then Ellie asks, what is best practice? Containers.
I've got a couple videos on that.
Really?
That address containers. I do. They're both accelerator videos. So, but there's a lot, man. Let me tell you, containers are everything. To me, containers are great for, I like to do, I don't know, some of you guys out there might argue with this because maybe that's a 90s thing, but I really like pop-ups. I like pop-up menus. I don't like a lot of clutter on my screens, and I don't like to make a lot of screens in my apps. So what I like to do is I like to group things with like information, things that are related information, and put them in pop-ups, and then have an action key, like maybe a button somewhere, or maybe you can click on a text box. If you double click a text box, it pops up something. I like doing little pop-ups, because then you actually have the information there to change and edit, but you're not losing the context of the background. You can see the information in the background. So I like doing that. But there's just so many. That's my favorite thing that's important for containers. But there's so much about it that you could talk about. We could do an entire live stream on containers.
Good. And I was giving people a view, like Kurt in his very first lab is very basic material. He goes into containers, so you can have guarantee that is an important topic to sort of get into.
Yeah, and then I do another when I'm doing a SharePoint many-to-many relationship video that I don't think you've even got released yet. I think it's coming.
You're creating so many videos, I can't keep up with my video editing.
some of these students, I think that SharePoint many to many came from Ellie. Actually they throw these ideas or these needs out there. So it's like, well, let's just do a video on it, and so anyway, I talk about containers quite a bit in that too, because I really want people to get that,
Yeah. Very cool. All right. So while that video was playing, I went back to the screen. How are they doing this progress bar? This is interesting. They're using an HTML control. You see that?
Wow.
All this. Look at all that HTML. Ugh. Wouldn't you rather use a chart for that?
I've never. Yeah.
I know.
I mean, you can make a rectangle. Look, you can make a rectangle be a progress bar.
Absolutely. Much more simple than that.
Yeah.
So this brings up an interesting topic. We talk a lot about the software industry, being a software developer, a programmer, what life is like. Because many of you don't have that job yet, but eventually you will. Okay. So one of the things is when you look at somebody else's program, typically what comes out of your mouth is what, or just saying like a WTF, right? Like, what? Why they do it that way? And if we had the person that created this, like, man, that was, I did it because of this. It's like, well, even your own code, you go back and look at your code from 6 months ago, and you'll say, what the heck? You know what I mean? Yeah. So Titanium says, how do I join the Accelerator program? You guys are much better, more interesting than. Yeah, I hope so. That's actually what my goal is. I mean, there's tons of material out there, guys, and by things that by people and places that I respect. But I try to be different. I try to keep things interesting. Try to keep it real. Okay.
Yeah.
And so the question is, how do I join the Accelerator? Well, so you go to the link at the top of the screen, and what happens is you'll book a call with us, and really it's about you. It's not about us. What we want to do is get to know you, first of all, get to know what you're working with, and what's so cool about the Accelerator program is we find out where you're at, where you're trying to go, and we get you there within the 12. It doesn't have to take 12 months. It could be 6 months. But I like to commit to people at least a full year, just in case, sometimes life happens. I was in the hospital last year, about this time last year, actually, for, at least 4 months worth of time. Life happens. I would love to talk to Titanium and find out your real name. My dad is Titanium, right? Absolutely. So,
by the way, just real quick, Darren, the Titanium, you don't happen to know Paul McCartney's Venus and Mars Rock Show album? Have you ever heard? Because that might go along with what your name. You should check it out.
Well, I think of that song. I think it's by Sia. I Am Titanium. I can't remember. I don't know if that's the name of the song or what, but that's the song that I think of. Kurt, you're more of a classic rock type of guy, I would imagine. You born in the 40s, right? Or is that the?
Oh boy, isn't that something else? That's absolutely something else.
Jab, jab, jab.
But let me tell you something. Venus and Mars, the album from Paul McCartney. What a great album that was. But that Titanium, man, that's a great song in there. I think you get a kick out of listening to that if you check it out.
Kurt, did you see this comment from Ellie? She's talking about your video thing.
That you want to teach and uplift us all. That's exactly right. Thank you, Ellie. And that's more important than anything. My whole goal, I think I said that to Darren 30 years ago now, 25 years ago, that, my goal is to get everybody to be able to program alongside me. And then I think that's what Darren's goal is too, so
absolutely.
I mean, I don't like putting words in his mouth, but I just know him well enough to know that. And we're all in this together, man. And, I think we can empower each other. I think you guys empower me and I empower you. And that's just the way life works best, I think,
Absolutely.
So, and we got to get this, and we got to get to Saturday, guys. Every day Saturday.
Every day Saturday.
Every day
fun.
Saturday.
It doesn't feel like work. It just feels like fun. What I like about software development, you use your creativity and you're building stuff. When I was in the 3rd and 4th grade, or one of those teachers would say, this is free time, but do something constructive. And to me, I could draw something, and I'm creating a drawing. Well, you're creating an app. I just feel so constructive.
Right.
Something I did want to share. We had an Accelerator student that said, "What is all this intro and overview stuff? Why we're excited? All this stuff, like what get to know the instructors, like." Why would I want to go through all this? Just give me the PowerApp stuff. And what did she say? I know who it is, but she was saying this like, wow, like
she was glad that she went through the time. She said this thing's 45 minutes long. That's crazy, And then she said, I am so glad I took the 45 minutes to listen to that, and it changed the way she was approaching. It changed the mindset. There's so much, there's a difference between having to do something and getting to do something, right? So if you get up in the morning and you say, I have to go to work, or you get up in the morning and say, I get to go to work, it's just a whole different, there's a paradigm shift in there. And that's why these intro videos are so important. Because it's talking about just trying to get your mind right for this thing, There's especially in today's society, there's a lot of obstacles in learning anything. And and many people now, some of you guys out here have been programming and working in IT, but there's people out there that are teachers, pastors, supermarket clerks. There's so many different walks of life, and we're trying to learn how to write programs. There's a lot of obstacles in that. So and you can get overwhelmed really quick. So attitude and discipline is so vital in this, man. So
it is.
Yeah.
So we got a whole module on proper mindset, and it's it might seem like a mindset. Just show me PowerApps. No, we've got some. I think it's gold. It's a lot of things that I learned from Kurt, and I picked up along the way in life in general, and also in my career. So, and we share all these things. So
yeah, here's the thing, Darren. If you would have said back 25 years ago, just show me VB, Kurt. Just show me VB, man. I wanted to show VB, but I wanted to show in a way so that no matter where you're at, no matter what happens, you know how to program, and you can actually program in whatever language is happening. And here we are 25 years later. Nobody can even, VB's not even around. It's hard to get a VB job now. Well, guess what? Darren's he's very vital still. And it's because he goes back to his fundamentals that he's learned. And that's what we're trying to teach here. We're trying to teach fundamentals because, 25 years from now, PowerApps might not be around. But guess what? The way we're learning this thing, it doesn't matter, because programming is programming if you do the fundamentals right. I've been in this industry since 1940, Darren said. And so you should see the picture of the first computer I worked on. But I'm still vital today, It's still Saturday.
It's still Saturday. I like it.
Still Saturday. Yeah.
Yeah. So something that I wanted to show here. So last week, what we had was I started creating this screen, right? So you guys probably remember this. So this pulls in the Azure AD information about that user, and they can update it. Okay. And we allowed them a way for them to update the profile photo and everything, right? And what I like about this is it gives me ideas of things that I want to implement in our own onboarding application. So we've seen this screen now. It's got some tabs in here because there's a lot of errors, but this is interesting. I don't know what this text thing is. Okay, that's interesting. So information about the company. Okay. I want to go through these and get some good ideas. Okay, so set company profile photo. Okay, so that would probably be for application administrators. Okay, that seems interesting. So yeah, I'd like to do something like that. And also, guys, I'm just going to blow everybody's minds right here. The SQL Server application, the PowerApps application I'm building with SQL Server as a backend, I want to create that in a way so that it could be a backend database for several companies, organizations. Okay, so I want everything of the company to be dynamic. So that's another interesting part of this. So something that I can do is bring up SQL Server Management Studio and show you guys the database tables that we've created so far. Okay, so Thean says the team tab shows who's on your team based on your org chart. Okay, very good. So that would be interesting. So if I go back to the team, so this way, okay, so it shows my manager. So it uses the Office 365 users component to get at your manager information, your peers, and your reports to. Okay, so if you are familiar with Delve, Delve is the M365 app that you can use to get at that information. So if you're used to Delve right here, I don't want to show my organizational information right now, but sign into it, go to Delve, and guess what? Go look at your manager and see what documents they're working on, because you can see titles of their documents. And also same for you. You search for anybody and see what documents they're working on. I find that a little weird. Of course, there's some security. You can lock things down, but I find it really interesting. So about me email. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, so maybe, Kurt, we might want to expand our requirements document for our onboarding app to include some of these really cool features. Yeah, I'd want to know people's birthday. I want to celebrate people's birthday. So guys, what I'm going to do for the Accelerator program is I'm going to use this onboarding app. In the software industry, this is called dog fooding. You're dog fooding the app, or like if I'm building a bug tracker app, and while I'm building it, I start using the app to track the bugs in the app. It's sort of like this weird meta thing. So I'm actually going to use this.
That's actually how C was built, right? When the C programming language came up, they had to compile it. Well, there was no such thing as a C compiler. So they actually had to write a compiler in C to compile itself.
That's interesting.
And that's pretty cool. Kind of what we're doing with that. Yeah.
What makes a good app? An app that you can use to help you build the app.
That's a pretty good app.
That's a pretty good app.
Build itself.
So I love this stuff. Whoever created this app, hopefully if they're watching, they're probably not. But they are. I don't know. I think it's great ideas, and the interface looks nice and clean. I really do like that. Okay, and here they've got a grouping and they've got a gallery of tasks. Okay, get the key card, get your badge, complete your W-4. Okay, all kinds of stuff. This is interesting. This is stuff that I want to implement. Okay, edit leadership. Okay, add a link to your company's leadership page where they can learn more. Okay, this is great stuff. Edit resources. So a lot of these screens will look very similar. So once you get one screen just the way you want it, you can just duplicate the screen, just tweak things. I did that in the ticketing system. There's a whole playlist where I built out a ticketing system. It's my ticketing system course. But I do that for the app admins because there was a lot of screens that were going to be similar. So I got one screen just the way I want it and then just duplicated it. So I think they probably did something like that here. Edit team information. Okay. Team links. Edit company header. Okay, that looks similar to the previous screen. So if I were to zoom out a little bit and show you guys all the listing of all the screens here. Okay, how many screens do we have? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 14, 15, 16, 17. There's 17 screens, and of course I added one. 17 screens here. So like, oh, this is a big app. Well, there's a lot of duplicated screens, which is probably what you'll have in a larger type of application here. And look, we got a scrollable screen. So they're using these. Oh, this is interesting, Kurt. Look at this. So this was what we were talking about as a canvas. Look at this. I go over here to the upper right corner. It doesn't say canvas. It says fluid grid. isn't that interesting? Fluid grid. Now, if I were to go down to the scrollable screen that I created before and I clicked on this thing, this is a data card. See where it says canvas? It doesn't say canvas up here. It says fluid grid. So if I say fluid grid, I can't add it from the insert. It sort of bugs me a little bit.
Because they want that to be a template, a scrollable template is what it is, right?
I guess. And also another thing, like there's controls that aren't listed here, okay? So we've identified a canvas, a data card. Typically you see data cards and forms. Now, Kurt and I don't like forms very much. So you won't see a lot of that in our material, but you can get a data from there. And then you've got an attachment control that you only see in a form as well. But you can go in and start to use these controls like a form and find a data card. Or you can go and look at for attachments in a form and grab that. And then copy, paste it over in a form and use those controls apart from the stuff that you did, like this screen here, apart from all this other stuff that it gave us, like this title and stuff. So it's like weird tips and tricks that don't seem very intuitive. You think intuitively I want to add something to my thing. You think it would be up here, but it's not. And that's what you have me and Kurt here for, is to show you all these really cool things. Okay, so we have got edit fact. And this looks like a good question, Ellie. So when you inherit an old app that doesn't have all the new features, do you keep it as is or redevelop it? Something this old, I would completely redevelop. There's so many things. Just having a data source tab here is so important. Now you could download the MS app and open it, and there's a lot of work trying to get in there and change the code so it actually shows that. You can do that, but I would just start from scratch.
Especially if it has this size.
Yeah.
So, back in the old days in other languages, when you have procedural programming and functions that you can create, user-defined stuff, it's a little bit easier to track and understand the logic. But with the old BASIC, and this is kind of what this reminds me of, is the old BASIC, where you didn't have procedures, you had a lot of go-tos and things like that. You could turn into some spaghetti code pretty quick. And so it's a lot easier, I think, just to look at your own logic. When you get into a sizable project like this and you're looking at other people's code, it takes you days or maybe weeks to try to get your mind wrapped around what they were doing versus maybe I'll just go ahead and rewrite this thing and I'll save myself a week or 10 days and digging through that,
Absolutely. And when you write it yourself, your mind, you have a much better understanding of your own app as you're building it, man.
Your own style.
Yeah, your own style. There's all kinds of things. So
it's almost always a rewrite. It really is.
Absolutely. So edit company intro. So this is good information. I thought this might have been a gallery, but no, these are just groups of controls. See, I probably would have created that as a gallery. What does the save button do? It patches to Excel spreadsheet. Okay, and then it navigates company screen. Okay. But yes, this gives me great ideas. Okay, so that was edit company intro. Now, the last screen here, we have collections and variables. Now, I've seen this with a lot of the templates. Okay, where let's say the last screen, you've got collections and variables, and you've got names of variables and collections here, and you got the name of it and then a description. That's actually a pretty cool thing. I almost wish they would have made that a part of the coding standards recommended best practices. You always have a screen that has all this. It would be sort of cool if there was something inside the PowerApps Studio that allows you, that lists off all your variables and you could put little descriptions beside it. That would sort of be cool. And we do, they added one right here. Okay. Click on variables. Oh, look, and this came out relatively recently. Okay. In the last few weeks, months. Okay. Why not have an interface like this where I could say, yeah, here is my variable. I click on it, find all the places where it's used. But why not have a place where I could put a little description that they've sort of created here?
Wouldn't it be cool to be able to have access to all to be able to map all your variables that you use and draw them into an interface, just like you do like any other form, where you could actually build an interface for your variables so you can track it, make a dashboard. Everybody loves the word dashboard. And you can actually, you can have like, like you can do different stats that are important to you, like how many times I use this in this screen versus that screen, or what are the values at any given moment. Wouldn't that be cool to have that?
It would be cool. In fact, I think I might add that to my ultimate jumpstart kit, my app template. Have a screen like that.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Very cool. All right. And okay.
Make a lab.
So what do you
make a lab with that.
What's that?
I want to make a lab and have the accelerator students figure a way to do that. I bet we can come up with some really cool ideas.
Kurt, what exactly is, when you say the word lab, what does that mean?
It means a project that I'm going to throw out some requirements, and then that would be just like a job. And then students will go out there and they will put it together and for I don't know, for whatever, like for a grade, for something to do, to learn.
Yeah. So guys, when I was learning from Kurt from that community college, he would have like 1 hour lecture, and was it 1 hour or was it like an hour and a half and an hour and a half? I know the night classes were structured a little differently than the day classes.
Yeah. It just depends.
Kurt would share these concepts. He'd have a lecture, a presentation, or a spiel. And then we'd go into the lab world with all computers. And then there would be some project Kurt would give us. You were going to lab 1, lab 2, lab 3. So I've asked Kurt to recreate that in the accelerator system. It's something that was invaluable to me. I really loved it. And one of the big things I brought you on full time for to help me with to create that curriculum, sort of recreate all that gold that you had.
Yeah, it's also good to create a lab. Like if you guys, this is what I always do, even with school or not school learning. Okay, so if I've got a problem in a program and I can't figure it out, what I do is I break that problem out into its own little baby program over here off the side, and I create a lab, and I just put LAB in front of it out of my Power App, and I use that lab to learn how and figure out how to get this concept done so I can put it back into my system. Because oftentimes when you're working on a big problem and you can't figure it out, you're in this task and you can't get it done. If the system's so big, well, then you're navigating through all these clicks and buttons and everything else to get to the problem. Whereas if I just break it out, the concept into a lab, I could just focus on that one little thing and get it right and then put it in. Yeah. So I've got lots of labs that I do just for my own self. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Ellie says, I'd love to see a dashboard of metrics. Please add to the lab.
Yeah, well, that's not a bad idea. Yeah, and what's a dashboard without gauges? I was really upset about this. Not upset, but disappointed. And they call this a dashboard. I've never had a dashboard that didn't have some cool gauges on it. That's the first thing you do when you're buying a car. You look at the car. You got the dashboard.
Dashboards, right?
Dashboards got to be cool, man. So dashboards need to have gauges on it. That show metrics. How much gas you got left, how much. Just all kinds of sorts of stuff, right?
Absolutely.
That's why I said, when they were doing the profile, there should have been a gauge there, like how % of your project's complete, or things like that. Gotta have gauges.
Absolutely. KPIs. What are KPIs?
I don't know. What's a KPI?
Key performance indicators.
I knew that.
This is what dashboard should look like.
That's cool. A dashboard.
This is what Kurt would call the oohs and the ahs, right?
Those are the oohs and ahs, right? You got to get the oohs and ahs in your programs, man.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I expect in the dashboard.
Yeah, and so that is one of the labs that we do in Accelerator. We got a chart lab where it does all the charts. You can get some pretty powerful stuff going on with the chart controls that they've got in PowerApps, but they're really cumbersome to use. If you don't know how to do it. So we're going to do some labs on that. And I really think you can make some really cool dashboards with those charts, I think. And rectangles and shapes,
Yeah. Absolutely.
I actually had a job working. There was a place called Fresca Airlines. It was in Champaign, just a little itty bitty place. And they built they built simulators for airplanes and write Visual Basic gauges in Visual Basic.
I remember you telling me about this. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can get a job doing those things, writing gauges, but make PowerApps be a gauge creator, you know, where you can make great gauges for things.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Doing that.
Yeah. So
For some reason, YouTube thinks you're going to like this video next. Let's see if they're right. Or you can select this playlist, which I've selected for you based on the content you're currently watching. Guys, gotta hurry, click one of them. Otherwise, YouTube's going to autoplay some other video.